knows the facts. Dun dun dun.
Oh, out of there. I didn't see you. I reckon y'all want to know about GMOs. I'll tell you what. I'm done here out in the fields. I'll tell you a little about them. In the 1950s, a global phenomenon known as the Green Revolution started an over-exploitation of crops. This, combined with population growth in the world, had a huge impact on the environmental change. With the need for this phenomenon was a necessity to maximize the potential yield of the crops of all kinds. With this need, genetically modified organisms were created. A genetically modified organism is defined as an organism whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. GMOs, including microorganisms such as bacteria or yeast, insect, plants, or fish, and animals. For purposes of this project, Michelle, Brandon, Clavo, and I based our information on the foods and plants that have been genetically modified. With this new technology, there are a million questions about it all. For the four of us, who are all 3,000 miles away, are concerned about the following. Are there health risks to being consumers of these GMO foods? Are there environmental risks? What are the national sales and consumptions of these products? What laws exist in the United States and Mexico for regulating and planning of these products? What are the laws governing the sale and labeling of these products? And are we being the option of consuming products that contain GMOs or not? And finally, do the environmental and health risks result in a more positive or negative outcome? To answer these questions, we interviewed scientists that specialize in this topic who do bibliography research to our answers. Here is our work, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we do.
We thank the participation of Emmanuel González Ortega, postdoctoral investigator at UNAM. Well, the risk of GMOs are direct health effects or toxicity, potential for both allergic production of allergenicity, stability of the gene that will be inserted into the organism, nutritional effects associated with the genetic modification, any unintended effect which could result from the geneticity modified gene. And if this problem is not fixed, it could lead to not just issue on the micro level, but also transition to an issue on a macro level. Even though the genetic modification of a plant only transfers a small amount of DNA sequence, the resulting phenotype, which includes the transgenic that and a possibility accompanying change in other traits, can produce an organism that is completely new to this. We have specific information of health risk, like the damage that glyphosate has caused in Argentina. These have revealed in the recent months by the WHO.
Oh, so I heard y'all want to know a little more about GMOs. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of good to GMOs that people don't know. First of all, GMOs create plants that are better resistant to weeds, plants, and disease. This equals a number of things, like bigger yield to create more efficient use of my land, use less of these herbicides and other pesticides they keep sending me. You get food with better texture, flavor, and nutritional value, and you get foods that last longer in the supermarkets. And finally, the biggest thing about genetically modified foods, it can create an essential, sustainable way to feed the world.
Pues eso es un metabólico que seguro no lo va a entender nadie, ¿me entiendes? Entonces el problema es ese, o sea, a veces la gente dice transgénico, eso está mal, y ni siquiera averiguan, ni siquiera saben de qué se trata. O sea, por ejemplo, ellos han hecho plantas que lo que hacen es que tienen las raíces más hacia la superficie, o toman más agua en los sitios donde hay mucha sequía. Esos genes no le van a hacer daño a las personas, por supuesto que no. Y se han hecho estudios donde se ha visto que no hay un daño a la salud. Sin embargo, la gente dice transgénicos y los tachan, y entonces ya ni siquiera averiguan que eso es un riesgo terrible, porque la ciencia está avanzando en una dirección que está produciendo cosas muy buenas, que sin embargo por ideas, simplemente sin fundamento científico, se eliminan y se evita su uso, aunque realmente son importantes y pueden ayudar mucho a la alimentación, a la salud y a muchas otras cosas.
Daño a la salud como tal, a nivel mundial han salido artículos, ¿sí? Pero el problema es que estos artículos han sido cuestionados en virtud que es muy difícil determinar que un analito, que una sustancia cause daño. Eso es muy difícil. A mí lo que me gustaría, y desafortunadamente también se desacredita, o sea, son como las dos posiciones, ¿no? Una que está en contra y que toda desacredita de que son dañinos, y otra que ni siquiera ni lee los papers y dice, no, eso le falta argumentos. Entonces, para hacer una forma de manera objetiva, a mí me gustaría que esos artículos llegaran a México, igual se discutieran. Todo lo que atañe a salud depende de la Secretaría de Salud. Entonces, digamos que en el área que estoy en la agricultura, dependiendo de los que me he especializado, realmente no llegan a alimentación, solo son los que permite agricultura, solo se siembran. No, y aparte está la otra parte que es salud, que tiene todo protocolos, instrumentos para permitir lo que consumimos, que realmente
Genéticamente modificada, y una planta puede ser de consumo humano o no de consumo humano. Entonces allí no habría ningún daño a la salud de nadie, ¿no? Hay organismos, por ejemplo, si yo quiero producir una bacteria que produce una proteína de un virus, es una bacteria genéticamente modificada porque está expresando la proteína del virus. Pero a lo mejor a mí me sirve para producir una vacuna. Entonces eso no tiene riesgos para la salud. Lo que pasa es que muchas veces los organismos genéticamente modificados han sido satanizados con que van a producir daños a la salud. De hecho, muchos de los organismos que son plantas, por ejemplo, genéticamente modificadas para expresar genes de resistencia a sequedad, o genes que producen más raíces, o genes de resistencia a insecticidas, o este tipo de cosas, se ha considerado que porque tienen esos genes de resistencia van a ser dañinos para el hombre. Y en la mayoría de las ocasiones no. O sea, simplemente se está haciendo un cultivo mucho más eficiente para el crecimiento en un lugar o en otro, o que produzca una mayor cantidad de semillas o de frutos, ¿sí? Entonces, no necesariamente un organismo que está genéticamente modificado va a tener un daño. Absolutamente. De hecho, la mayoría de los casos no tiene un daño para el organismo. Porque además muchos de los productos ni siquiera los consume el hombre. Entonces, yo creo que... Sí, por lo que yo sé, sí, existen normas que rigen el trabajo con transgénicos y los experimentos con transgénicos. O sea, la gente, por ejemplo, de nuestra institución siempre está en la parte de Irapuato, trabaja mucho con plantas y tiene que ver con plantas transgénicas. Ellos, por ejemplo, tienen ¿cómo se llama? Invernaderos que están cerrados, etcétera, evitan la posibilidad de volar semillas o cosas por el estilo que pueda ser contaminante. O sea, de manera que todos sus experimentos están muy restringidos, y en ese sentido está la legislación. O sea, no pueden salir, no pueden haber mezcla con organismos del ambiente, etcétera, etcétera, ¿sí? Entonces, en ese sentido creo que todo está bastante regulado. Además, a nivel de publicación, para nosotros los científicos es importante poder publicar nuestros resultados. Para nosotros, para poder publicar un resultado, tiene que estar bajo las normas del país, y no, si no de otra manera no se nos permite.
From Mexico to the United States, even though these two countries are close together, their laws and regulations on GMOs are completely different. In the United States, there is no federal legislation that specifies two genetically modified organisms. Rather, GMOs are regulated according to the health, safety, and environmental legislation governed on conventional products. In the US, the approach to regulating GMOs is premised on the assumption that the regulations should focus on the nature of the product rather than the process in which they were produced. GMOs are an economically important component to the biotechnology industry, which now plays a significant role in the US economy. For example, the United States is the world's leading producer of genetically modified crops. In 2012, they produced several million acres of biotech crops globally. For several crops grown in the U.S., genetically engineered variants now make up the vast majority of the crops. In 2013, 93% of soybeans, 90% of cotton, and 90% of corn grown in the U.S. were genetically engineered by either herbicide tolerance or insect resistance. The three major agencies involved in the regulation of GMOs are the U.S. Department of Agricultural, Animal, and Plant Health Inspection Service, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Environmental Protection Agency. The Animal Plant Health Inspection Service regulates the planting, importation, and transportation of GM plants according to their authority under the Plant Protection Act, which authorizes the Secretary of Agriculture to prohibit or restrict the importation, entry, exportation, or movement in intense commerce of any plant product if the Secretary determines it is necessary to prevent the introduction of the plant, pest, or noxious weed within the United States. By regulation, the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service classifies most GM plants as a plant, pest, or potential plant pest as a regulated article under the PPA. A regulated article must receive prior approval from the inspection service before it is introduced. The Food and Drug Administration regulates the safety of all human and animal food products in the U.S., but that doesn't include meats, poultry, and eggs, as well as drugs and biological products. The FDA's primary statutory authority is the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which authorizes the agency to regulate adulterated foods, which is defined as a food that's containing any poisonous or harmful substance that can affect one's health. The food additives, which include any substances that may become a component or otherwise affect the characteristic of any food, prohibits the sale of these adulterated or misbanned foods. Under the FFDCA, substances added to food can be classified as a food additive, which requires approval from the FDA that says that they are safe for human consumption. And substances added to foods classified as generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, does not need pre-approval from the FDA. Now, unlike Mexico, the United States has no laws which require GMO foods or foods with GMO ingredients to be labeled. Proposal to federal legislature, known as the Genetically Engineered Food Right to Know Act, which would mandate labeling of any GMO food or food with genetically modified ingredients, has been introduced to several Congresses, but has never advanced beyond the committee in either chamber. At the state level, a 2012 California initiative mandated labeling GMO foods, and a similar 2013 case was brought up in Washington state. Now, how is it that the United States can be considered separate yet a unified country, but most of their laws are there any state laws that can regulate GMO foods? Generally, the state government plays no role in the regulation of GMO foods in the U.S. Ambiguous acts, how are GMOs labeled in the U.S.? In the U.S., there are currently no laws which require GMO foods or foods with GMO products to be labeled in the United States. Many federal legislatures have been proposed with an act known as the Genetically Engineered Food Right to Know Act, which would mandate labeling of any GMO foods or foods with genetically modified ingredients, has been introduced to several Congresses but has never advanced beyond the committee stage in either chamber. At the state level, a 2012 California initiative mandated the labeling of GMO foods, and a similar 2013 Washington state initiative was also proposed, but both ended up in failure. Being a separate yet unified country, one must think that the state levels have the power to regulate GMOs, right? Well, generally, state government plays little role in the regulation of GMOs. However, a rare example in which one state's laws was more stringent than federal law in the GMO involvement involves a bioengineering tropical aquarium fish known as the glowfish, which is unregulated at the federal level but has been banned by the California State Fish and Game Commission. Even some municipal governments in the United States have banned GMO crops. For example, in California, the counties of Marin and Montesino have been eradicated, ordinances forbidding the cultivation of GMOs. Also in Hawaii, the Kauai County and Hawaii County similarly have banned the cultivation of most GMO crops.